Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to NAGP TV's coverage of this World Endurance Championship, brought to you by iRacing and NAGP TV. Good to be here tonight. Those are just a few of the sights and sounds you can expect to see over the course of the next hour and 15 minutes or so. We are here at Watkins, Glen tonight in the third round of this Season 5 World Endurance Championship. Quite a battle we've had through the first couple rounds, actually. We'll get to that momentarily. But first, a couple news and notes. We have not been around here for the first couple legs of this championship, unfortunately, so we have yet to be introduced to some of the drivers we're going to meet. And we'll definitely want to stay informed of and apprised of the point situation and where everybody's running, but unfortunately not able to be on the air for you the first couple weeks of this championship. But we'll get you all caught up and make sure that going forward we have a good idea of where everybody's running at and how this very exciting Season 5 championship is going to unfold. Now, my name is Brad Mears. I'll be here controlling the pictures. I'll be the only one here controlling the pictures, so it can get a little difficult at times to keep abreast of all the action that's going on and where everybody may be. For those of you who have happened to tune in here occasionally before for some of these races, you'll know that that's no big surprise. That's a pretty common occurrence, but we try to improve as best we can, as often as we can. So you may also notice that some of your custom liveries are not in there and loaded up, so a little bit of a problem here with the trading paints tonight coming into this event as Eric Estes takes it into the pits. Now, we will get to a few news and notes of the Watkins Glen track that we're on now, a very storied track, of course, and an exciting one for some of these drivers. Now, it's very likely we will see some fairly large gaps open up over the course of this event. Some 22 drivers will be displaying their talents on this track tonight, but there could be quite a speed differential from front to back, and sometimes that's just going to happen. So Chris Miller is actually leading your times at the moment, your official practice time leader. Chris Miller now 1 minute 43.6. Now, hard to say just how fast that is, but when you can compare it to Corey Round's 144.4, well, that's quite a difference. So a good second there separating those two in the official practice times. Now, the times do get quite a bit closer after that. And of course, it's one thing to be turning and burning around the track in practice, quite another when you actually get out there with 22 of your closest friends and rivals on track and to turn a few laps in anger. So the race and all that yet to be determined. Now we're going to be flipping it over here to the qualifying period before too long. In fact, I'm kind of surprised we aren't there at the moment, but we'll be doing that before too long, and we'll see just what kind of pace these guys can manage on those low fuel setups. And it's going to be interesting to see, as we do have quite a large field here tonight, and track position to start could be all important. Now, some more news and notes around the paddock. It does look like the majority of these drivers could possibly be double stinting their tires here tonight. So I don't think there's going to be too many strategy variations. Some guys perhaps trying to take advantage of some fresh rubber and some shorter lap times. Looks like the majority of the field will go ahead and be sticking on the same set of rubber over the course of this 60-minute event. Now, as mentioned, pretty interesting championship here through 2 rounds completed. We started off at Circuit of the Americas at the Coda track, and a fun time that was, particularly for Corey Round. Corey Round took that win in a relatively easy fashion, taking home the lion's shares of points at 36. Chris Miller, however, came back just a couple weeks ago at Phillip Island and bested the field there. So those two drivers tied at the top now at 36 points. And if you'll recall last, and I think we're just about ready to flip over to our qualifying session here, but if you recall some of our coverage from last season, it was those two at the top for the majority of the season there as well, as the drivers head out on track to put down their best lap here over the course of 15 minutes. So, currently a tie for those first place championship points between Corey Rowan and Chris Miller. Now, Michael Roehrig sits right behind there with 31 points in the third spot for the Season 5 championship. So, right there, Roberto Lacroix. Now, we talked about him a lot last season too. Roberto Lacroix is there in a tie with Paul Darling. So, 4th and 5th tied at 30 points. So, just you can throw a blanket over those guys and really the majority of the field. Now, those points not necessarily skewed, but let's not forget, in this championship, these drivers will be throwing out their lowest point finish of one race over the course of the season. So, Chris Miller, one of those drivers with no points in the first round, yet still retains co-ownership of the current championship due to that race being thrown out. But Chris will certainly not want to let another one get away from him. Now, let's see if we can't get you to some... Oh, John McIntyre's in the field tonight. Very good to see. And where'd he go? Morn Deploy now. Showing some actually pretty good practice times himself there around the 8th, 9th spot. You can see that that's actually where he's currently listed at, despite not having yet turned in a qualifying time. But here in just a minute or two, we're going to get a real good sense of just who's going to be running where. And once those first times are established, we'll gain a lot of clarity as to who might be able to improve up that provisional pole leaderboard. Quite a difference for all these drivers. No doubt they've put in quite a few practice laps for the race, no doubt. And surely I would think they have put in quite a few practice laps for the qualifying session itself, because well, these cars are pretty sensitive to fuel load. So taking that fuel out of there and trying to lighten up that car for your best speed can really lead to some handling difficulties, and pilots who are not quite ready for that can easily get caught out. So, no liveries tonight. You may also notice in this Season 5 championship, two classes of cars out there. So it's the rough Porsche, the track car, and of course the BMW Z4. So, a couple options for these guys here this season. And those times shortly to be coming in. Now, we should mention also the points for the secondary championship. Now, as our qualifying session has ticked over here, we don't have a lot of time to explain that, but it is a secondary championship for drivers who might not necessarily always be in a position to battle for the overall drivers' championship. Now, a few of those drivers at the top, Eric Estes has 28 points, Rob Thaler 26, Tim Ryberger 25th, tied with Kenny Duvall for 4th. Now, this is a secondary championship, and I have to say that the points tally for that championship and the qualifying qualifications, I guess you could say, to get into that group of drivers is a little mysterious to me. So I have a little bit of trouble explaining that. However, it's pretty, frankly, it's a pretty coveted championship, and these guys are no less fighting over that than the overall Drivers' Championship. So we do want to try to keep abreast of all that information as well. Now, I should mention quickly also, in the teams race, the Balding Eagles, of course, are sitting at the top with 67 points, and the Marlboro Team Eagle actually is trailing by quite a bit there at 11 points. So that team battle, not quite as close as the individual drivers title, which is a little strange, it has to be said. Usually those team battles are quite a bit closer. But No doubt those are always subject to change with the multiple points being tallied for that team championship. So does Chris Miller is logged in with a 144.2, and that's a very fine lap by Chris Miller. Now Corey Round quickly has taken over the second place, and you can see not too far off of that Chris Miller time. Now covered only by about a half second or so, but running into a little bit of traffic now is Corey Round, and quickly this time is beginning to drain off. Now lap times around here at about 1 minute 44. Well, in a 15-minute qualifying period, you sit there, not going to get that many laps in, so Corey a little mired behind some lap traffic at the moment. Alfonso Rodriguez showing some very nice practice times and now shows himself here in third provisionally for this qualifying session. 144.9 will get Alfonso into the 44s, and provisionally a nice time. Again, that starting position so important around here, particularly if you want to try to stay safe heading into that turn 1 complex. Downhill, not off camber, but certainly tricky entrance to that corner, very high speed, so as is the rest of the track, it has to be said. Michael Roderig also mired in a little bit of traffic at the moment, so not quite into the 44s, but these times will be drifting quickly toward the lower end of the spectrum, I think, for some of these guys, and 8 minutes 30 to go now, so very few timed laps really on offer for these guys here tonight. They may get 3 or 4, perhaps 5 if they just take enough fuel and go out there and run multiple timed laps in a row, but quite a gaggle of cars here trying to fight for a little bit of space to get their best lap in. So it is Alfonso Rodriguez continuing to hold down that third place. Mike Erter now has made it into the 44s as well in fourth place. Nice time for Mike. More deploy. Nice time down to 145.1. Putting that BMW through its paces. As I quickly navigate and look away from my screen, it looks like we did have a little bit of problem there with Kenny Duvall, so he'll reset and give it another go. Wow. Those are some blue rims. Wow. I don't know if that's a BMW factory job or what, but certainly see that thing coming. So once again, Chris Miller at the top here. Followed by Corey Round, and I don't know why that time is showing up as a 147.6, but in any event, that's what it says. Guess that was on his last lap. Alfonso Rodriguez actually has bettered his time now, but he has fallen to fourth place with that 144.8, so bettered his time by about a tenth, yet lost a position, now down to fourth provisionally. And he is going to come to the stripe now, will not improve his position. Now I think I see what the problem is. Okay, so now we have it is Michael Roderig there in fifth, and actually we did see Alfonso Rodriguez. He must have slipped, as our timing sheets are really kind of getting reordered here. The laps are rolling in so fast the timing can't quite keep up with it. But we will get it figured out here eventually. And at the very least, once they start, well, we'll know exactly where they're at. Oh, Chris Payne now in the 10th position, 145.5. Nice time, and it has to be said, really, that these times are pretty close throughout the field. So just bare tenths really separating this field, and about 1 second now separating first from 10th place. We'll try to reset our scoring here and see if we can't figure out what's going on. Now Scott Myers is in the 11th spot, just off that previous time we saw there with that slightly higher 145.5. Another very neon BMW for you. Tim Ryberger, another very mid 145, so very close times there. Fred Myers, we checked in with him last time he was in 13th, continues to hold down that 13th spot provisionally. Another mid 145, just over mid 145 for Ray Nelson. Charles Huffstetler looking to get into the 145s, not quite there yet. John McIntyre has moved up from that 16th spot. Timing quite hasn't caught up with him yet. But as you can see, he is solidly into the 145, so very nice run for John McIntyre. We should check up here with Chris Miller. Yes, I suspected that Chris Miller would be putting in a better effort by this time, so 143.88, and that's certainly the fastest time we have seen by anybody, either in practice or the qualifying period. So Chris Miller is up on it. He says that my practice times were no joke. I'm here to put a smack down to the field tonight. So Corey Round looking to answer, but I tell you, I think it's going to be a tough task, and with just 3 minutes, 30 seconds to go here, he is really going to have to come up with something special. Eric Estes currently on, actually in the pits. No. But on an outlap in any event. Michael Roerig coming around in that 5th spot. So Roerig again, currently by himself 3rd in that championship hunt, looking to better Corey Rowan and Chris Miller and try to advance his overall points position here. So he will definitely want to improve from that 6th place starting spot if he possibly can. Yeah, I'm looking for some sector times to pop up here, but unfortunately the secondary timing monitor has gone down, so I don't have those sector times for you. But in any event, we're going to go ahead and stick on Michael here and see what we can't see as he comes up to the stripe here momentarily, coming off the last corner. Really pretty well managed, using all the track there. Good head of speed going. But no, he's going to be a 10th off his best time. Chris Miller has continued to lay down the law here. That 143.69 is looking pretty good to me. Corey Rowan at 144.3. Looks like Corey is back into the pits. And I think that is going to do it for his qualifying effort here tonight. I don't think Corey's going to do any better than 2nd. And quickly, Jeremy Evans looks like well, I don't know why he's shown there. But that, 144.5 might actually be the 3rd place time. So Jeremy Evans, I'm not going to say out of nowhere because he was showing very good times in practice. However, was not heard from until recently here. And wow, really improves that time by about 0.3. So, 144.1, excuse me. So jumping up nicely, Jeremy Evans here toward the end of this qualifying period. Now he's going to do no better than 2nd on the grid. However, quite an improvement for Jeremy. So very good to see. Now it's going to be up to Corey here to answer. And I think that Corey is done. Eric Estes is well done. Alfonso Rodriguez is on an outlap, so it does not look like Corey is going to get the Alfonso Rodriguez, excuse me, is going to get the opportunity to turn a time. Oh, he does though. He was not on an outlap, but he will not improve on his 5th place starting position. Michael Roerig is still in 6th. And he will get this lap in. And he will improve indeed to 4th, so he is going to be happy to nip that lap there at the at the final bell, as it were. So Michael Roerig, very nice effort there to 4th. Chris Miller tried to better his time, and indeed he did now. 143.4. I'm looking for that second place. Yeah, Jeremy Evans, right, of course. We saw him come in with that 44.1. He is actually going to get another opportunity here, it looks like. No. Okay, so once again, just trying to go about as best I can, figuring out the timing and scoring here, and our iRacing overlay can be a challenge sometimes, but eventually it all comes right. Okay, now I think we're coming pretty clear here. So that was actually a pretty good qualifying period. It was Chris Miller out front. Ooh, it looks like Morin has done something and put it off track. So what a great time by Chris Miller. More or less continuing with his official practice domination here over into the qualifying period. But instead of that Corey Round running second, it's going to be Jeremy Evans who stole that second place position on the grid here to start this race tonight. So very good job by Jeremy. Corey Round did end up slotting third. So nice run for Corey, but a little bit of work yet here to do if he expects to best Chris Miller here tonight. Michael Rohrig did come home. We saw in that fourth place, and Eric Estes will slot in fifth on the grid. So a very nice job by those guys. Now, I've had a few more join the server here, so it's going to be a total of 24 pilots, I think, taking part for this Round 3 Season 5 championship. And the more the merrier, I always say. So it'll be a few final instructions for the drivers here. They'll head out on a warm-up lap, and we're going to begin the race. And a difficult race, I think it could be. So going to be very important, I think, for a lot of these drivers to stay patient tonight. Despite the track being so fast, it can be a little difficult to pass on, and taking some chances in a few of these corners can spell disaster if one of these drivers gets it a little bit wrong. Maybe not only for them, but for the potential driver they are trying to overtake. So I think patience really will be key here tonight, and mistakes, frankly, are going to happen by some of these drivers. So perhaps a good strategy here tonight, if they do expect to make that pass, is simply to wait it out and wait for that opportunity on a mistake. So it looks like they have begun to line up the grid. And though the order is a little shaken up, that's okay because we know where they're going to start. So it is Chris Miller out front. Jeremy Evans is going to line up second. Corey Round will take third. Michael Rohrig takes fourth. Eric Estes is in fifth. Alfonso Rodriguez will start sixth. Rob Thaler is going to take seventh. Morton Deploy, nice time for eighth. Mike Erder finished that qualifying period in ninth. William Harris is going to slot 10th. Chris Payne ended up with the 11th position. Kenny Duvall starts 12th. Hugo Ramos starts 13th. Tim Ryberger is in 14th. Scott Myers took 15th. Fred Myers took 16th. Ray Nelson will line up 17th. Charles Huffstedler will take 18th. John McIntyre is in 19th. Douglas Taylor is in 20th. Ralph Kimmerer is in 21st. Benny Jones will take 22nd. Eric Hafner will line up 23rd. And actually, Daniel Roberts will take 24th. It says 22nd, but it's actually 24th. So, there it is on tap for you. You can see the cars following the pace car around. I guess this will be a full pace lap here around this Watkins Glen circuit. I'm not sure you'd think that I would know, but I'm not sure the total laps are going to have here tonight. However, we do know that it will be a 60-minute race length for these drivers tonight. Okay, sorry about that, I'm back. Yeah, I've got a few technical things here I'm messing with. Now, we have had some audio issues in the past on the broadcast. It's actually, I think, hopefully the volume has been sorted. However, did seem to have a little bit of mic feedback when I was doing some testing earlier. I have no idea if that's happening now, but we're just going to kind of roll with what we got and bring you the best pictures that we can. But it doesn't look like it's running too choppy out there. Hopefully it's going to be running okay for you. Of course, the majority of the viewers here we know are going to be rebroadcasts. And as you guys do go about on your warm-up lap, definitely like to give you a big thank you for NAGP for coming out to race on a weekly basis. It's a fun time. It's a somewhat competitive time if that's what you choose it to be, but it is a community here which makes NAGP so great to have around and so fun to be involved with. So thank you so much for your participation and for getting out there and doing battle. So as we can see, it is a bevy of BMWs out at the front now. Didn't take note of that as soon as we should have. I think the main exception here really is Eric Estes. No, excuse me. Michael Rohrig or Alfonso Rodriguez, I believe, is in the rough track Porsche. So the best qualifier, the rough cars, all the other guys in the BMWs, and they do look to be pretty darn strong at this track. So we're going to line them up. They do look like they're in a good line, ready to take the green for 60 minutes here at Watkins Glen. And through the carousel for the first time, Corey Round slotting into third. And putting pressure on Evans. Michael Rohrig held down that fourth spot. It is Eric Estes who actually has some through to 6th now. Alfonso Rodriguez actually is in 5th. So a nice clean start for the field. Didn't see any off, didn't see any trouble back there, so it looks like it's going to be a clean start here for the first lap. And nice, Dice is already back in the field, scrambling for the early position. Well, we mentioned patience a little bit at the start, and certainly for the first lap, it looks like that's going to be the case, as these guys really giving a lot of room out there, understanding that this is a relatively long event here at 60 minutes. We do have an off by Jeremy Evans, just not giving up anything to Chris Miller. I think he understands that if Chris Miller does begin to pull a bit of a gap, he'll be able to kind of set the pace of this race and perhaps begin to gap the field. So Jeremy Evans, I think, really looking to put the pressure on and try to force a few early mistakes or try to keep that pace down just a little bit. Michael Roehrig has given up just a little bit of ground now to Corey Rowan as he is feeling the heat from Alfonso Rodriguez in that rough Porsche. Once again, sorry, our trading paints application not quite working as well now, so it's Alfonso Rodriguez looking to make a move. Tough braking zone here, hard on the brakes. And will be hung up on the outside, perhaps? No, he is going to slot back in behind, reset, and try to give it another go. But definitely looks like Alfonso Rodriguez has the pace on Eric Estes at the moment. Boy, Chris Miller, so good off the last couple corners there. Very important corners. If you expect to run a good lap time around here and improve your position in this race, it is going to come down to those final two corners. And it was a bit of a mistake, it has to be said, by Roehrig, but Alfonso Rodriguez really not able to capitalize. Coming off turn one, but that rough is making some very nice power down the straight. And once again, latching onto that Roehrig BMW bumper. Eric Estes looking to join the party. Whoa, I think that was Erder having a momentary off there coming through the carousel. Very wide, actually, very little grip on the outside of that corner, so very fine job really there to get it gathered back in, and still battles taking place all over the track now. We'll occasionally have to reset the time to try to figure out where everybody's running. Oh, it is William Harrison 8th, and what a train of cars that we have going on here now. And I think it has to be said, Roehrig is starting to hold these guys up just a little bit and forming a train behind Alfonso Rodriguez, looking inside, looking outside, looking everywhere he can to try to make the pass as he sees Corey Rowan now dwindling in the distance of that three-way fight for the lead. And so Alfonso now relatively desperate to get by. So we've had a couple laps, tires up to temperature now, and guys not willing to be quite as patient, I don't think, as they were. Let's quickly try to get you through the field and find out who is running where. We do know that it's Alfonso Rodriguez running in 5th. Eric Estes does continue that fight in 6th. Rob Thaler right behind there in 7th. William Harris is in 8th. And William Harris now being pressured by Erder. Oh, excuse me, that was Harris. Pressuring Thaler, excuse me, Thaler and so we missed Rob Thaler. We don't want to do that. So a nice two-way BMW fight going on here, and it looks like Harris is going to have a look going into the carousel. And will not make that pass stick just yet. There he now. It looks like Rob finally did have to give a little bit of room there. Or excuse me, Harris had to give a little bit of room. This track, very wide, very fast, but still very difficult to pass on. And nicely judged by both those drivers to get through there cleanly. Kenny Duvall runs 10th, just a little bit off of that big fight for 4th now. Tim Ryberger in another train of cars here, fighting with Morn Duploy, who has slipped back from his starting spot. So Morn not in the position that he would have expected to be, I don't think, considering that 8th place start. So that is not Chris Payne in 4th, excuse me, I'm sorry, that is Tim Ryberger running behind Morn, of course. Hugo Ramos also in that fight. And some very contentious battles, it has to be said. Now, I postulated that the gaps would open up over the course of this event, but they certainly have not yet. So Chris Payne looking to take advantage of Hugo or anyone else that he possibly can here involved in these multi-way fights. Fred Myers now in 15. Now, one guy I don't see is Scott Myers. We're going to check on him quickly, but he has lost a few positions, one of them to Charles Hustudler, who is running 16th, and there's Scott Myers right there behind him. So it's the classic rough Porsche versus BMW Z4. We've seen it a million times. The battle continues. The battle rages. John McIntyre now being pressured by Daniel Robert. And and a little wide there for Daniel Robert. So I'm once again fiddling with all my displays here. Now it has to be said that rough does generate good pace, has very good speed down the straights, a very good performer, but at the same time, very twitchy, very difficult to control, particularly in the transition from brake to throttle. Always some nervous times at the rear end for this rough Porsche, but if you get it figured out, of course, a fantastic performer. So John McIntyre, yet a little bit of work to do if he expects to extend that place over Daniel Robert. Now it is Ralph Kemmer looking at those guys through his windscreen there in 20th. Taking it almost too wide coming off the last corner there. Benny Jones sliding in 21st. It looks like he is just going to go ahead and manage his pace at the moment. Try to stay a little on the conservative side. But he is going to have to be careful. He plays it too conservative. Ray Nelson quickly closing the gap. And that's the battle we'll have to check back in on. It looks like Eric Hafner is either off or in the pits at the moment. So not sure what's going on there. As well, Douglas Taylor. So off track at the moment. Perhaps getting some repairs. And perhaps we'll have the opportunity to get back out there. Now, back toward the pointy end of the standings here. It is still Jeremy Evans trying to hunt down Chris Miller. And boy, that battle remains very close. Now, I suspected when we did come back to this battle, it would be Chris Miller beginning to eke out a bit of an advantage, but has not happened yet. So, Jeremy Evans and Corey Brown have said, we have come to play. Now, it could very well be Chris Miller is trying to conserve a bit of tire here. Perhaps he's just trying to manage the pace. He knows that, likely, that this is a difficult place to pass on. And just managing the pace might be good enough to get that win after all through some tire conservation strategies. But a good 10.5 minutes run off this race. And Jeremy Evans is saying, well, I'm not having any of that. Now, we did see the battle back for fourth. It is still Michael Rohrig out in front of that battle, with Alfonso Rodriguez still kind of latched onto the bumper there. But if I'm not mistaken, it is now William Harris who has solidified himself in that sixth spot. Now, there was quite a train behind Michael Rohrig the last time we checked in. It looks like William Harris has come out of that pack and, in fact, showing very good speed as he's going to take a look at Alfonso Rodriguez now coming down the main straight. Just about giving Alfonso Rodriguez the chrome horn, just to let him know he's there. And a tight fight, close battles for these guys. Intense moments, it has to be said. Really on the edge of... Oh, and it was just a little too over the top there. William Harris will turn Alfonso Rodriguez around. And it is going to be some damage and some positions lost for Alfonso Rodriguez. And that very nice fight has come undone suddenly. As I'm trying to switch views here for you. So, William Harris, it looks like he has maybe backed off. Perhaps he'll wait for Alfonso Rodriguez to catch back up. It did look, it has to be said from this broadcaster standpoint, William Harris took that just a little bit too deep. You know what? Accidents happen from time to time, and in close racing, those battles are going to happen. So, So it is now Rob Thaler in that 7th position. Let me quickly try to reset this stuff here. Now that we have had a few shakeups. I was interested in checking back on this fourth place battle quickly to see just how far off William Harris may have slipped, and indeed it does look like he is dropping back a little bit. Not sure if he's going to eventually. Oh, Alfonso Rodriguez, it looks like he has had some other type of off. So Alfonso Rodriguez off track at the moment, and perhaps that is why William Harris has got back up on the wheel here. So unfortunate incident, we didn't catch that. So perhaps it was a little bit of the red mist going on for Alfonso Rodriguez. Perhaps stuffed it into an Armco someplace, but in any event, that is a tough break for Alfonso Rodriguez. Looking very racy here at Watkins Glen. So in any event, it is now Mike Erder up into that 6th position. Now, no. Okay, got confused there for a second. Rob Thaler running 7th. Very nice effort here for Rob Thaler now. Not unaccustomed to running in the top 10 as Rob Thaler. However, we did not see that as much as we would have liked last season. So a solid 7th place running here relatively early in this event. Just 15 minutes clicked off the timer. Still a very fine effort for Rob Thaler. But meanwhile, we should keep you apprised here of the battle going on toward the front. Because as you can see, it is now Jeremy Evans still handing down Chris Miller, and Corey Rowan looking to take advantage of both of them. As this battle has remained very intense from the drop of the green flag. Now, it did seem to me in that very opening lap or two like Chris Miller was going to pull a gap. And we, of course, have cataloged just a few minutes ago that that was not happening at all. But certainly these 3 drivers in a class of their own at the moment. We saw Michael Broderick putting in some very fine time, coming under a lot of pressure before that battle came undone, but simply not up to the task of these front 3. Ah, there we go. Now I got some race timing up here. Okay. We do want to keep apprised of that battle, but we also want to make sure that we don't miss too much of the action going on here. A little further back, we see Morton Deploy has gotten out in front of Hugo Ramus. But, as always, Eric Estes. Okay, here we go. As always, the live timing is letting me down. So, Eric Estes and Morton Deploy now fighting, and boy, Morton got shuffled back a little bit to begin this race, but with a few retirement, well, Alfonso Rodriguez going out and a few other mishaps out there, Morton has come back up to that 8th position. So yo-yoing a little bit through the field here is Morton, however, running 8th at the moment, so very fine effort, and you can see that battle right behind there, over 10th. So, of course, it is Chris Payne and Tim Ryberger all involved in that fight. So intense battles going on all over the field. Now, difficult to say when these drivers will come in for their pit stops. For surely, they will need some fuel to make it the race distance. But quite a bit of strategy options for when they may want to take that fuel. But I should think that the window would be open for most of them coming up here just within the next couple laps. It looks like ahead, somewhere up there, here is that Estes-Morn fight. Morn really giving them the business, but decided to back off there, and I think that might not have been a bad choice, really. decided discretion is the better part of valor there on the inside. There's lots of opportunities to pass around this place. Actually taking advantage of those opportunities, a different matter altogether. You have to really make sure that the pilot you're trying to overtake knows that you're there and plans on making the run. Now it looks like Corey Rowan has slipped off the bumper a little bit. And oh boy, it looks like something has come undone here for Jeremy Evans. Jeremy Evans not in our picture and currently showing in the 19th spot. I think Jeremy Evans has taken it off track here. And as soon as we get a timing update, we'll get you caught up on that. But big news in store here on the Jeremy Evans front. And so sorry that we missed that action, but there are too many battles taking place. So indeed, Jeremy Evans currently being shown as off track, so whether he has come to a bad end or has had to pit for repairs, we're not sure yet. We'll find out, but in the meantime, Jeremy Evans' race has come undone. Now, I guess it's going to be up to Corey Rowan to see if he can maintain the type of pressure that Jeremy was able to employ on Chris Miller. These are your, again, both of your season points leaders here on the same screen at the same time, so a battle sure to ensue. Wow. So while that fight takes place over the lead, we still have this battle going on over seventh place. So more in deploy, Hugo Ramos actually and Chris Payne have caught up somewhat to that battle now. They can certainly see everybody on track, and that's half the battle when you're out there and trying to catch the guy in front of you. Tim Ryberger looking to insert himself and join the party in that battle over seventh, excuse me. Rob Thayer running a little on his own at the moment. Coming now through the S's onto the very long back straight. And we can take a look at some of these cars. I'm looking for the highest place rough Porsche. And you know what? I'm not sure where it's going to be, but it's not going to be in the top 10, I can tell you that. So Z4 is leading the way, and somebody looking to lead the way now is going to be Morn. Still looking to make that pass on the inside now through the carousel. And wow, he did really try to push. I'm not going to say that we saw that coming, but oh! On the power, just a little too hard. Oh, he had it. He had it saved. Got back on the throttle. The car did not hook up for him, and he is out of this race. More in deploy. Great race for him has come undone just like that. And that, unfortunately, is going to impact Hugo Ramos as well. So both those drivers coming to a very unfortunate end, and the attrition is building here quickly. So that will move Chris Payne into the 8th position, and boy, making it nearly halfway through this race with such great battles, how quickly it has come undone for some of them. But bad news for some has spelled very good news for others. Rob Thaler, as a result, has picked up a spot now. So Rob Thaler running 6th. Great spot for him. And I have to tell you, I'm very impressed with the type of race Rob is running tonight. And I don't think that it is Rob Erder making a mistake through turn 1. And Thaler, no doubt, will be a little extra motivated here to try to pick up that 5th spot. Oh, very fine run being put in by Rob Thaler. Quickly go back to Michael Roehrig now. Michael Roehrig has made a little bit of ground on William Harris. Now, William, of course, was right up behind Michael Roehrig before they had some problems there, that battle with Alfonso Rodriguez, but has clawed back a bit of that ground. And definitely looks to be gaining some time here. So over the rest of this event, I think Roehrig is going to have to figure out a few places you can pick up a 10th or 2. per lap, because that looks to me to be the difference right now. So taking a look through timing and scoring, it does look like Corey Rowan has slipped off the bumper just a little bit of Chris Miller. I think after the pressure of fighting for that second place with Jeremy Evans, I think perhaps might have lost the focus a little bit, maybe started overdriving the car. In any event, he has slipped off the time being put in by Chris Miller just a little bit. But what a fine run for Chris Miller, surviving all of that pressure being put on by those two following just behind him. And coming away still leading this race nonetheless. So very solid, well-focused effort put in here about halfway through this event by Chris Miller. Interesting to see here. Quickly through 3 races now, there have been 2 drivers who have really kind of dominated the competition at this point. So we're getting to that point in the season now where if these drivers expect to have a shot at that overall championship, they will have to start to figure out a way to break the Rowan-Miller stranglehold of this Season 5 championship. Now, Roehrig is continuing to be pressured just a little bit as we've been, we just watched that battle a few minutes ago. Okay, so let's see if we can't get a reset here. So, it is now Mike Erter running relatively alone in 5th place. Rob Thaler continuing to try to gain some ground on him. Eric Estes just running a couple seconds off of the bumper of Rob Thaler. Chris Payne has moved himself into the 8th position. Tim Reiberger also moving up nicely now to the 9th position. Scott Myers suddenly finds himself in the top 10, being hounded relatively closely. And I think that that is actually our top running rough Porsche now in the 11th spot. So Charles Huffstetler putting it to pretty good use and trying to hound down Scott Myers. Now, we did see that battle pretty closely joined the last time we checked in on it. So those two still in battle, however, have just picked up positions as a result of some of our retirements. It is Ralph Kimmerer now who has moved up pretty nicely. I think that is John McIntyre right behind him. So John McIntyre, last time we checked in, found himself in 19th position, so quickly up to 13th, and a nice run going for John McIntyre as a result. Oh, not too far behind. Ray Nelson can actually see that 13th position up there. On the straightaways, anyway. Daniel Robert. Now, if memory serves, Daniel Robert did find himself in a much better position in qualifying, so I could be mistaken about that, but in any event, it's a 15th place for the moment for Daniel Robert. Benny Jones was well back toward the tail end of this field, now finds himself running in the 16th position. And Hugo Ramos now. We've seen some problems with Hugo. Showed some very nice speed here to begin this race. Unfortunately, it did come undone for him. Not his fault, but that rear spoiler just a little askew on that BMW, so no doubt not helping him out in the handling department. But Hugo's a gamer. He's going to stick in there. And Morn Deploy, it looks like he is showing as off track at the moment, and I don't think that is for a pit stop. No, indeed, that is not shown as a pit stop. I think Morn Deploy is off track, and that happened oh, that was the incident involving him and Hugo. Excuse me, sorry. Oh, you know, we get confused sometimes. It is Fred Myers now in the 17th position. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe... Oh, yeah, 17th and then 18th for Hugo. Yeah. So Hugo, I believe, actually did come in for some repairs, which is why he is shown back there in 18th. Okay. Now, I have to say, I do get a little confused sometimes as drivers who are getting repaired are shown as off track, so it's hard to tell. We got to check in with them to see if they find themselves out there back running. But We know one driver who is definitely running is Chris Miller. So Chris Miller, now about halfway through this event, has begun to put his stamp on it as his own, as he has begun to start to make some more consistent gapping take place of Corey Round. So Corey Round, now the tune of about 3 seconds off of that first place Chris Miller. It is still William Harris trying to chase down Michael Roehrig. That gap continues to close just ever so slightly as those two drivers battle for the last podium spot here. Boy, it can be so... not difficult, but maybe a little frustrating. Find yourself driving as well as William Harris is and just not being able to make up that time. Just picking up a 10th here, a 10th there. And you know, if you can get into a fight with a guy, perhaps you can get some pressure, maybe make some better speed, but it can be so tough just getting there sometimes. And that's because Roehrig is putting in some great laps. So trying to get that advantage. But you know what, as I look back on that main straight, I'm going to say that Mike Erder is really not too far off of that battle. So that Erder battle hanging off, just about 4.5, 5 seconds as they run on track. So really thinking perhaps he can get a little bit of luck by one of them, maybe chase down the other, and think about grabbing a podium for himself. Now Rob Thaler continues to hound him down. Doesn't look like he has gained any ground, but certainly back there just a couple positions. Chris Payne has definitely picked up some time now on Eric Estes. Now, all-important pit stops upcoming for these drivers. I was going to mention it, didn't quite get to it. The pit lane entry around this track is actually quite fast and just a little bit dangerous as well. Very easy actually to speed on this pit road, so hopefully these drivers have made a few practice entries when they do come in and get serviced, so they can avoid any penalties that may result from excessive speeding. So Chris Payne perhaps postulating a little bit of this as he tries to gain an advantage and pick up that 7th spot. Nobody has blinked yet to dive into the pit stops, and it looks like a lot of these drivers choosing to take it a little later rather than a little earlier. So Chris Payne doing a very nice job hounding the Erder BMW. Spins by both these guys. Looks like that windscreen can use a little bit of a polishing. So again, pit stops I think are going to be pretty critical for some of these drivers, and as I look through that timing and scoring, I see Corey Rowan actually has not let Chris Miller get too far out in front, perhaps making, as we see Mike Erder now diving into the pit, so one of the first to act, and our pit stop rotation has begun. So that pit stop entrance I think could play a role in some of these battles. And I was going to mention that Corey Round now has not given up too much more ground to Chris Miller. In fact, perhaps has gained back just a little bit. So pit stops are going to be important for these two drivers as well, I think, in their continuing battle. But this one for the lead. Yeah, I wanted to check in on the Rob Thaler BMW as well, because it looked like he has started to make some inroads on that Erder battle. Now, one driver we haven't checked in for a little bit is on that William Harris Rowerig battle, and I see that one has stayed pretty static. In fact, Michael Rowerig might have been pulled out another tenth or two here over the course of the last couple laps. So, or perhaps even more, perhaps to the tune of about a second. So William Harris now a little bit on the back foot in that battle for the podium. But still, nonetheless, very fine drive put in by these two guys. And it can be pretty tense in these long affairs, knowing that, yeah, okay, I've got another 25 minutes to try to pick up that second or two I need, and trying to formulate a game plan as these races progress on just how to go about doing that can be pretty difficult. But William Harris is going to go ahead and take the option to pit now, and we'll see where that battle shakes out when those stops do cycle through. Now it looks like Chris Miller has come into the pits as well, so our leader Chris Miller is in, and Corey Rowan no doubt is going to try to lay down the law here for a couple laps and see if you can't make up just a little bit of ground before his stops come as well. I just flipped over to my broadcast. It actually does look a little choppy on my end, so hopefully when it's saved and presented, it'll look alright. But anyway, so once again, our pit stop rotations have begun. Corey Rowan elected not to pit that last lap. As main rival for this event, Chris Miller has come in. So that gap about 2.5 seconds when Chris Miller pulled the trigger, and Corey Rowan will stay out for another lap. He feels like his pace is pretty good. As a result, Michael Rowerig, as a result of him not stopping yet, takes over that second spot. And Rob Thaler finds himself fourth. Of course, he has yet to make that pit, and I believe that is Erder who has, yes. So Mike Erder into the pits, and it has to be said, really, that Thaler, I think, had really picked up quite a bit of ground there over the last couple laps before Erder decided to come in for his service. So Rob Thaler, very fine effort. Now he has put in some couple very nice efforts here over the first couple of rounds. Rob Thaler sitting 7th currently in our points championship, and looking to best Eric Estes for 6th place on that in that classification, and actually at the moment has done so. Eric Estes will get you caught up on the running order as soon as these pit stops do cycle through, but Eric Estes at the moment buried a bit back in the field, so Rob Thaler putting a very fine effort towards his overall championship hopes. We'll get you some of those close battles as they are rejoined once we get these pit stops cycled through. Now, John McIntyre was running 13th, currently finds himself in 15th. Not sure where he's at on the pit stop rotation, but as he is running 15th, we have to assume that he has made a stop. So just waiting for a few of those fellow competitors in front to make their stops before he reclaims some of those positions, no doubt. But as we look, he is in, at the moment, a direct fight on track with Ray Nelson. So Ray just a few seconds off. Very interesting here now, with just 22 minutes left to go. And positions hinging on these all-important pit stops. So Chris Miller has rejoined some 45 seconds behind Corey Rowan in that virtual fight for the lead. And don't know what the time delta is around this place. Didn't have the opportunity to check that out. But it's going to be 45 seconds. Corey Rowan is going to want to get in and out of the pits if he wants to get in front of Chris Miller. I have to say, I don't know that it's going to happen. Chris Miller does look like he has a very good pace and was pretty unflappable as well. So don't know that we're going to see too many Chris Miller mistakes after coming out of that pit stop. Roehrig yet to pit. And now does elect to, so we'll check on how that battle's rejoined. Now, I did just see something pop up here. We had not checked in with... Okay, trying to go through timing and scoring here. Sorry about that. Yeah, Charles Huffstedler. Showed him as out, however, he was just in the pits. Okay, so... Charles Huffstedler has completed his pit stop. He is back out on track. Now, he was involved in some very close fights. Notably, I believe, with... was it Chris Payne? Well, shoot, I forget. But we'll find out here shortly. When these stops do completely cycle through. Always difficult here with this iRacing live timing and pit stop. So, sorry for that. But in any event, it is now Corey Rowan we want to keep our eyeball on versus Chris Miller. And it looks like trying to figure out where they're at on track, and I keep getting confused. You know what? I think Corey has gotten out in front of Chris Miller. Okay, where is that? That's coming. Indeed he has. Wow. So, Corey Rowan, whatever he happened to do on that pit stop, it worked out very well because he has taken over the virtual lead of this race over Chris Miller. So, a stunning turn of events here, as the pit stops have cycled through for those two drivers, and actually quite a few as I look down the list here. Rob Thaler has yet to come in. As well as Scott Myers. So just a few pit stops left to go. Now, if Chris Miller was just trying to manage a pace and kind of get through this event by just kind of out consistencying, if that's a word, his rivals, well, now it's going to be put to the test because he's going to have to put in some pretty good lap times to try to hunt down Corey Rowan if he expects to take the checkered flag in the lead here. Okay, and I think we're caught up a little bit on our timing and scoring. So it is about 3.5 seconds now from Chris Miller to Corey Rowan. And we will definitely be interested in managing that gap. So it looks like Rob Thaler and Scott Myers both have come in now. So into the pits. Thaler and Myers. Now, both those drivers running very well. Rob Thaler, as you recall, running 6th before that pit stop rotation, and Myers in 9th. Chris Miller actually has made a mistake there, you can see. And that's going to be the test, I think, for Chris here, is to be able to maintain very good speed, but not overdrive the car. So small mistakes around here are really going to end up costing you a lot of time due to the speed differential, high-speed nature of the track. It's going to equate to quite a few tenths lost on those small mistakes, and pushing very hard, getting very loose coming off the last corner. So Chris Miller Going to be some anxious times. I think that gap has quickly already started to come down, though, a little bit, perhaps a half second already gained. And I tell you something else. There's a possibility Chris Miller has decided to take some tires on his stop. That could actually explain quite a bit here. And if that's the case, he may have quite a bit of speed in hand. So, assuming that now, 17 seconds to go, Chris Miller will have a very good chance here toward the end of this event if he did take tires versus Corey Round's double stint. Okay, now I think we have some clarity here. We know Corey Round is in first place. We know Chris Miller is in second. It is now Michael Roehrig who has rejoined in third place, but Roehrig does find himself some 20 seconds off of the lead. William Harris has reslotted into fourth, so William Harris has slipped off the back bumper of Michael Roehrig just a little bit compared to that fight that we saw going into the pit stop. So it's a full 7 seconds now. William Harris finds himself in the rears to Roehrig. So is Mike Erter now coming out fifth, and Rob Thaler, we saw him having some looks at Mike before that pit stop rotation. That battle has rejoined. Rob Thaler's lost out on just a couple seconds now for that top 5 place, but Scott Myers, looking back a little further, has rejoined in the, it's Eric Estes now taking the 7th spot with Scott Myers in 8th. Now, did I see a little bit of damage on the front nose of that BMW for Eric Estes? I think I did. So perhaps not electing to fix that damage in the pits, cost himself a little time, didn't want to do that. Scott Myers finds himself in 8th. So Scott's fine run continues. Now, if it'd be fair, he had a little bit of help with attrition to find himself in that top 10, but certainly getting the rest of it done on speed, and he has been running some very fine laps around this Watkins Glen International Circuit. It is now Charles Hufstedler finding himself in 9th, so well and truly into the top 10 for Charles. And Chris Payne's fine run continues, though. He has given up a couple spots since we last checked in on Chris, now running in the 10th position. Ralph Kemmerer continues to pick up spots over this event. Now, he didn't qualify, I don't believe he qualified in the top 15, so quite a few positions gained for Ralph. Daniel Robert now finds himself in 12th. And if I'm not mistaken, that is Ray Nelson, of course, involved in a fight that, I think that's John McIntyre right behind him. It is. So these guys have more or less been battling over the course of this entire event, and they have swapped positions once or twice. It is now John McIntyre in 14th to Ray Nelson in 13th, but they are both, I think, closing in just a little bit on Daniel Robert as I sit out on track. So some very important points paying positions here as we run down the time on this event. We're going to check in on that Chris Miller fight here toward the front shortly, as it does look like Chris Miller is beginning to gain a bit more ground back on Corey Round. So some fireworks to take place up there shortly, I believe. Tim Ryberger has cycled through to the 15th position, and I don't know that Tim's going to be very happy with that position. So it did not quite have the type of Watkins Glen event I think Tim was looking for, but he is out there. He will garner a few points, assuming he stays in that position. Benny Jones continues his effort here late in 16th at the moment. Fred Myers in 17th now. And Hugo Ramos continuing to circulate in the 18th position, so found himself on the back foot, has not been able to recover. Tons of damage on that BMW, but a nice effort to stay out there on track. Go ahead and complete this event. So unfortunately, has turned into a testing session for Hugo, but you know what? That's just the way it goes sometimes. You take the good with the bad. So now back up toward the front, we can see the gap has decreased now. to Corey Rowan. And this battle, I think, will be joined pretty soon. It's going to be about, well, it's going to be at least 12 minutes that Corey Rowan is going to have to deal with this pressure put on by Chris Miller. How close that pressure is going to be, well, that's anyone's guess at this point. Chris Miller does continue to push for a little bit of speed, has not cost him yet in terms of throwing the darn thing off track. So that gap quickly down to about 2 seconds. And as we look through timing and scoring, that Rob Thaler, Mike Erder contest is rejoined in quickly. Rob Thaler, he was down to about 2 or 3 seconds off of Erder's bumper there after those pit stops. So I have to suspect that Mike Erder possibly a little bit of a mistake. I don't think in this case there was a tire differential on the pit stops. Those times were a little too close coming in and coming out. I suspect that they were both on the same strategy. So this is Rob Thaler just showing a bit better speed at the moment than Mike Erder. And frankly, certainly the best battle on track at the moment, as Rob Thaler will try to have a look. We've seen time and time again how difficult it is to make the pass around some of these wide sweeping corners. There's just too much opportunity really to be able to hang on the outside and maintain very good corner momentum. I don't know why it does that. Always switches back to that other cover. So. Oh, I know why. In any event, it is now under 10 minutes to go, and it is under 2 seconds now for Chris Miller. And should he get up there all the way to that Corey Rowan bumper, you have to think that some fireworks will ensue, because he definitely does look to have some pace. As we are just going to let this battle unfold a little bit. But we can't for too long, really, as the battle over 9th has really heated up here between Chris Payne and Charles Huffstedler. Now, Charles had that position, so Chris Payne now through to the 9th position, knocking Huffstedler back. So I'm wondering if Chris Payne does have a bit of pace on Charles. It looks like it might be that way. I think that pass actually just took place, and quickly we can't see Chris Payne, I'm not going to say rocketing off into the distance, but surely making up a gap pretty quickly. We just saw that pop up on timing and scoring. Now, we don't want to lose too much sight of this battle over 5th as well. So Rob Thaler and Erder continue to go at it, and that Chris Miller battle now under a second. So, down to a second with 8 minutes on the clock. What do we have? 3.5, 4 laps left to go. That is going to be the time remaining that Chris Miller is going to have to get the job done here at Watkins Glen. And it is going to be Rob Thaler taking another look. And he is going to hold very good momentum on the bottom. He is going to take over that 5th position very cleanly and retain it. Fine work put in by Rob Thaler, and well deserved of a 5th place position at this point in the race. He does not have too long to hold on here to take home those 5th place points. Chris Miller is going to have a look here into turn 1, and no, he won't. He's going to go ahead and just take it a little patient here. He's going to get a run through the S's though. And I don't know if Corey Round's going to be able to survive this going into the carousel. Let's see if I can possibly switch these cameras fast enough. So cleanly through, it looks like Chris Miller is not going to have too much trouble hanging on to this. I don't know that Corey Round's going to have too much of a fight for him, particularly coming up the hill here, as Chris looked to be very good through the final sector. So as you can see, I think that there is a tire difference in play here. I think indeed that Chris Miller did decide to slap on a new set of shoes, and we are seeing that difference on track. Okay, trying to get caught up with all the gaps here as our time winds down now. Just about 5 minutes left to play. It's like Rob Thaler has remained out in front of Mike Erter. Mike Erter has not let him go too far. There is lap traffic in front of those guys as well, but you know who I see is William Harris, not too far out in front of that battle over 5th place. So there is a possibility this could come together here in our closing laps as well. So very interesting to see. We do want to quickly check on Michael Rohrig now. We haven't had the opportunity to check back in quite a while. The gap is about 30 seconds from Michael Rohrig to Corey Round there in the lead, but nonetheless, it is a very solid podium position for Michael Rohrig. And boy, that 3rd place in this event really chimes in very well with the 3rd place overall in championship points. So Michael going to have to be one of those guys trying to find a solution to the Rowan-Miller mix toward the front. Continuing to push Rob Thaler hard here, coming through lap traffic. And I'm wondering if that's keeping Rob Thaler from being able to escape just a little bit. And boy, that gap is coming down now to William Harris. I think that one of these guys is going to have an opportunity, as William Harris has suddenly found himself really struggling in that BMW for whatever reason here late in this race. Boy, just a little further back here. Let me find it. Yeah. Daniel, boy, it's difficult to keep up on some of these fights going on, but it is Ray Nelson and Daniel Robert as well fighting over the 12th position. Daniel Robert almost throwing it off track. Really pushing hard, trying to pick up that 12th place. Keep it on track, Daniel. That's the one we wanted to get to. So indeed, going to be just a couple laps left in the book here now for Mike Erter, trying to reclaim that position on Rob Thaler, who is trying to claim that 4th place from William Harris. I'll make quickly sure we don't lose sight of Corey Round. Corey Round actually has managed the gap as well as he could, I would think. Given the type of pace that Chris Miller has shown. Once again, perhaps Chris Miller, once he got back out in front, is breathing a little sigh of relief and is looking just to kind of finish off this race. So quite an effort put in and maybe needing a little bit of time just to rest the old hands and brain a little bit. Will these guys get up to William Harris? I don't know. But they are giving it one hell of an effort. Daniel Robert continuing to push as hard as he can, but I don't know that he's going to have enough, and having a little bit of difficulty, it has to be said, at the moment, with, I believe that is our race leader, Chris Miller, getting him through. Not much Chris can really do to kind of stay off that battle and let those guys go ahead and duke it out to the end, as any time lost here to Corey Rowan will give Corey the opportunity to reclaim that first position. So trying to quickly get through traffic here is Chris Miller. So Rob Thaler is definitely closer now to that William Harris BMW. And for him, it is going to be just a lap, perhaps two, depending on where Chris Miller is going to cross the line. But it is going to be a pretty good battle nonetheless here over that fourth position. So trying to come home on those dearly worn tires, trying to drive at the limit. Very good effort put in by these two drivers. Boy, you could just see the difference in front grip there by Rob Thaler. That is it. Our time has expired. This is going to be the last lap, so it's only going to be 4 corners left to go here for Rob Thaler to get the job done over William Harris. And we're going to stay on that battle to the flag. And negotiating in the last corner, looks like they're both going to get off and clean. It will be Harris in 4th and Thaler in 5th. In the meantime, Chris Miller did take your win. Corey Round finished 2nd, and Roberg will finish off in 3rd. And I hope that was the last lap. They do look like they're still at speed. So, not 100% for sure, but that's the way it looks to me. I mean, it says last lap, right? Of course it says last lap now, too. So we'll stay here just in case. Looks like they're still running to me. Boy, what a great drive by William Harris. Coming under relatively intense pressure here the last couple laps. Very nice drive all throughout the event, it has to be said. Had some unfortunate contact there earlier with Alfonso Rodriguez, but Still in all, very nicely finished off here by both those guys. Rob Thaler will go ahead and take home your 5th place. It is going to be Mike Erder there in 6th. Eric Estes is going to come home 7th. Scott Myers finished off in 8th. Chris Payne, nice run up to 9th. Car looks very clean. And assuming Charles makes it through the last couple corners here, that is going to be our highest place rough Porsche. So that is a win of sorts for Charles Huffstedler. Nice job. Top 10 in a very deep and tough NAGP iRacing field. Nothing wrong with that. Ralph Kimmer is going to take it. Take it off. I don't think it's going to cost him. We do have a battle shaping up here in the closing seconds. No, we don't. Yes, we do. Yeah, no. iRacing live timing. Thanks. In any event, it looks like that's going to finish it off. So, one hell of a race here at Watkins Glen. It really did not disappoint. Now, I suspected we were going to have quite a few gaps open up here, and you know, we did see some gaps, but quite a few fights have took place throughout the entire event nonetheless. And it is going to be a very good event, as it turns out, for Chris Miller. Chris Miller is going to go ahead and grab that championship points lead over Corey Round, but Corey Round's not going to be out of it by any means. So very close points there. Michael Rohrig did come home in 3rd place, so very good points for him as well tonight. Now, we had a great event here tonight. We've had a couple good ones prior to this one, and next week's not going to be any different. So Mid-Ohio on tap for these drivers, and we know what a challenge that place could be, particularly those drivers electing to take the rough Porsche into that Mid-Ohio complex. So going to be quite a spirited affair out there, no doubt as well. Now, I wouldn't mind grabbing our race leader and getting him here into our voice over IP. However, it's not through the iRacing chat, and we can have some conflicts with that. I don't know that he is on Ventrilo or will be able to hear me. So we aren't going to hear from our race leader this week, but we'll make sure that we get to your race leader next week there at Mid-Ohio. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up our coverage here tonight. We hope you enjoyed the pictures that you did have, and were willing to kind of struggle through with me on trying to manage and navigate all of the timing screens and managing all the cameras here tonight. So with that, we'll say thank you once again for tuning in. We'll see you next week from Mid-Ohio.